There we go. So I'll just share it again. Slideshow. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So basically I created this because I'm a social worker by trade, and losing 4 people in 2020 was very difficult. And I just want to share some of the things that I learned over time. I put this together because a lot of times grief, when we're going through it, it's so heavy. And I'm sure that
Mhm.
you can relate with that, right, Bobby? So we're going to go through this. We're going to go through loss and grief. What is loss? We're going to go through some of the grief definitions, complicated grief. Some people go through depression. We'll go through some exercises, indicators of grief, some of the symptoms of grief, grief responses, how long does grief last, do's and don'ts in grief, and coping with grief during the holidays, and self-care and mental health. Now,
Okay.
I know we're going to go quite quickly through all of this information, but just know that I do have weekly sessions as well. So for all
Okay.
the people that are here, welcome. And my name is Lise, and welcome to Lorraine and to Bobby here. Lorraine, if you just want to tell us where you're from, that'd be awesome.
Hi, my name is Lorraine, and I'm from Fort McMurray.
Oh, welcome, welcome. Happy to have you here. So we're just going to go through this information very quickly. And like I said, every week we do sessions. And then I do have the Grief Warrior program if people are interested as well. But we're going to get through this as much as possible because my goal and my dream is to help as many people as possible, because I know how difficult grief can be. So grief is basically a natural response to our loss. It's like our emotional suffering, the feeling that something has been taken away from us, and often the pain is overwhelming. I know for myself, I went through the shock, the disbelief, the anger, the guilt, and extreme sadness. It can impact our lives greatly. With the supports of understanding, one can transcend the loss and grief. So, knowledge and strategies and supports can really help you through the most difficult times. And that's why it's so important to reach out and connect with people, because loss can be very difficult. It can affect every part of our lives. I know for me, it crippled my emotional state, my, my relationships with my own self. I wasn't taking care of myself. It's a part of the transition, and it comes in waves of emotions over a period of time. And it means that something that we value was taken away from us. Many of us associate the loss with death, but it can also be the loss of a relationship, jobs, pets, etc. It could also be the loss of our health. So there are other losses that impact our lives, affecting our moods and ways of coping. Transitional or non-death losses account for emotional instability and a sense of sadness and emotional instability encountered in our daily day-to-day life. So it can affect absolutely everything. So loss is the absence of something that you value. Grief is the reaction that we have to the emotional response. So sometimes you feel really depressed and down, like you can't even get the heck out of bed. And it's really important to understand that the grief can change as we adapt to the loss. So some people are more resilient than others, and others people need a little bit more help than others. So grief is a way that is meaningful to us. It doesn't have to meet any societal expectations. All that matters is that we work through it and not to hurt others. And that includes not hurting ourselves. If we feel stuck, that is when we really need help to get through it. And like I said, talking to other people is important. And some people tell you to get over it, move on already. We can't move on. We need to get through it on our own terms. And sometimes there's complicated grief. This is when something interferes with what's going on in the process of healing. The results of feeling stuck and the deep sense of loss. It can vary from situation to situations. Sometimes things can get confusing when there's multiple problem issues, such as addictions or relationship issues. So sometimes there's family members that can get involved that make it really complex, especially when there's politics in the family. Sometimes people can't accept a death and may avoid reminders of the loss, may be stuck in the pain, or they cannot connect to anything positive. And sometimes people can be fixated on the story of death and self-blame. So it's really, really important to, acknowledge where we're at. And if we go into depression, it's about our low mood, and its symptoms is our low mood that is present across most situations. This can be accompanied by low self-esteem, loss of interest in normal activities, loss of energy, pain without clear cause, or feeling tired all the time, and thoughts of not wanting to live. That's what can really happen in some of these situations. So this is a grief exercise that could really help us through our time. So grief exercise number 1. So basically my mom was my caregiver and my number 1 person in my life. The thing I will miss the most about her is, every morning we'd talk together. Every day I would phone her, or she would phone me. My favorite memory of her is our time playing games together, laughing together, those kind of things. If I could see them right now, what would I say to her? And when I start to miss that person, I will. So these are important exercises that we can do to help us to extrapolate some of those favorite moments that we had, to start compounding all the great things that we had happen in our lives with our loved ones. And then you can, exercise 2 is the person that died is, my mother, or you can write about them. And this person is my, number 1 person in my life, or, who were they to us? And my loved one died from, and then my favorite thing, favorite memories, my loved one really liked. You can extrapolate all the things that they love to do, and you can try to narrate their story. This is one of the things that I'll miss the most about my loved one. So we also want to try to keep the balance when we're talking about our loved one, the good times, and also, to balance out the sad times. And the one thing I didn't like, was my mom constantly smoking. A few years before she passed away, she finally quit because she had to. And when I want to share stories about my loved ones, I like to talk to is, so those are some of the things that you can do to help you extrapolate more positives in your life about your loved one. Now, exercise number 3 is where you can create a memory box for your loved ones. You can put games in there, recipes, movies, all these favorite things they used to love to do, favorite songs, trips, times of the year, favorite restaurants, activities, favorite sports or favorite spot, favorite foods or colors. And that's really, really important to help to create that, bringing the past, the present, and the future together by having this memory box. You can have their, those memorial things to help you to create like somewheres where you can go to a sacred time with that loved one. So doing a personal inventory on what's going on with yourself in your situation. Again, you go through all those different things, like who was this person? When did this occur? Were there complications in the passing? What were the circumstances? How has this affected your life? How has this affected your experience with the loss and the change in your life? And then how have you been behaving since this began? How has your thinking been affected? How's your feelings being affected? How's your physical well-being being affected? And how do you feel about the pain and the pleasure? And how has this affected you spiritually? And what are your dreams like? And how has this affected how you feel about yourself and others in your family? And what kind of supports do you have? And how has this affected your life and the way that you live right now? Does anybody have any comments about these exercises?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. So there are also non-death losses, loss of connection, especially when we were going through the pandemic, loss of jobs or retirement, loss through critical illness. I have a brother that was just diagnosed not long ago with pancreatic cancer. They gave him 1 year to live, but he's finding, his way through. Loss through addictions. Sometimes we have people that go through addictions which is extremely difficult. And loss through relationship breakdowns. Loss of connections. Humans need that social connection. We need those interpersonal connections in order to feel like we have vitality in our lives and our existence. Losing the connection really impacts the meaning of life, and it can be very devastating, especially if we lose connection to our loved ones. And loss of connection to a romantic relationship and loss of our pets can be really devastating as well. Even unemployment, with all the chaos that's been going on, so many people have been stressed right out, are unemployed, and they worry about how they're going to survive, and it affects people's confidence and purpose. It also gives people, a lack of identity, because a lot of people feel like, purpose of life when they're working, and it affects one's routine, and it creates multiple factors in dealing with a new reality, and it impacts how we cope in our lives as well. Then there's indicators of grief. So, we have the loss of pleasure, longing for our deceased, may want to die or even join our loved one, may find comfort in friends and families, going over their mind of how they could have kept them here, and I should have been there, though this should have been me instead of them, sort of thing. And then I should have done this or that. These are some of the indicators of the grief. Then retirement. Oftentimes people don't think of retirement as a loss, but it is. A retirement, you go through the adaptation to retiring and coping with life after, the loss of routine, basically. And this is a form of transition and adjustment, and it can be hard on a person as well. So relationship breakdowns, especially with breakups, often lead to depression or anxiety or substance abuse, or sometimes people have suicidal ideation. There's also risk management, in addressing the issues and enlisting supports. The goal is to have safe supports that will impact the pain in order to heal. And sometimes it takes professional counseling, meditations, nature walks, painting, surrounding ourselves with, positive outlets to healing. And using healing alternatives is really helpful, such as art therapy, music, staying away from negatives such as news or negative people. And with a chronic illness, sometimes people are diagnosed with a chronic illness, and that's a form of loss as well. I know with my mom, she had cancer, battled cancer a couple of times, and so did my father. And eventually, my dad did pass away, and so did my mom. But my mom didn't die of cancer, but she had complications, let's say, that she passed away from. So basically, there's a term of the limitations of our health issues when we can't resolve them. We have further deterioration and having to notify loved ones and friends and coworkers, and then adjusting to the entire situation. The loss of independence, productivity, self-esteem, confidence, control, and dreams can really impact our futures, especially when we're dealing with chronic illness. Now, addictions can be really difficult too. It's another form of grief and loss that people have to deal with. And then it's difficulty, especially identifying and understanding and communicating personal needs, difficulty in accessing emotional supports, inability to simulate loss into meaning, and then the loss of control, and then the lack of coping with strategies, and then social acceptance. Early life losses and losses that occurred while abusing substances. Sometimes people go through a lot of losses when they're going through recovery. And, there's a loss of family and friends due to the addictions. And of course, the loss of pets. Sometimes people will go through the loss of pets and, they're like our babies and are part of our family. And a lot of times people do grieve their young ones. So it's very devastating for families when they lose their pets. But grief is a walk alone. Others can be there to listen, but you will walk alone down your own path at your own pace when you sheared off pain, your raw wounds, your denial, anger, and bitter loss. You come to your own peace, and hopefully, but it will be on your own in your own time. And that's from Kathy Lamb. I thought that was very wise words. So basically, grief, it's not a disease, but it's a sign. It's not a sign of weakness. It's an emotional, physical, and spiritual necessity. It's the price that we pay for love. And the only cure for grief is to grieve. Some of the symptoms of grief could be physical, emotional, like the sleep disturbances, shortness of breath, tightness in the throat, physical distress. It could be sadness, anger, anxiety, loneliness. Behavioral could be forgetfulness, searching for the deceased, also worrying so much about our loved ones, and also wanting to make others feel comfortable, needing to retell the story of our loved ones over and over again. And sometimes there's suicidal talks. And then emotionally, there's a lot of people that feel the sadness, the anger, guilt, anxiety, and loneliness. And this is normal symptoms of grief. So why are we grieving? The hardest time of the day is we miss them, obviously, right? And You know, we come out of our routine, we have memories of them. They were our life givers, they're our teachers, sometimes they're our children. And some of the things I wish I could say to them every day, even if they passed away, I still talk to them, you know, and I ask them for guidance because I truly believe that they're around us always. And alone, what do you do? And the things that help me the most right now, and I will lean on, these are just ideas. So it's important for you to find the right support for you. Read books about grief, talk to a counselor, and watch videos about grief, and take a workshop on how to deal with grief. Join a grief group, support group, and write a letter. Now, one pointer I'd like to give to you is that when I was grieving my mom and lost my mother and stuff, I wrote a thank you letter to my mother instead of writing a goodbye letter, because a lot of times they say that the therapist told me that when I was going for therapy myself to write a goodbye letter. I could never write a goodbye letter to my mother because she was my life giver and I'll always have her in my blood because I am her daughter. I don't know if any of you feel that way, but I wrote her a thank you letter. And that's basically how I coped with it. So these are some of the grief responses. You know, your change of appetite could be huge, tightness of your chest. You might have a lot of fear or anxiety. You might feel unmotivated. You might have some mood swings, crying, loneliness, self-blame, dream about your loved ones. I know I dreamt about my mom a lot. Difficulty sleeping, the numbness, the shock, low energy, confusion, questioning your beliefs, or fear of death. Does this resonate with any of you?
Yes,
Okay.
most of them.
Most of them? Okay. And then, of course, there's the different phases of grief. There's the shock and denial. There's the anger and the depression. There's the release and the honor and return to love. So just know that all of these things that you'll be going through waves of disbelief to, you know, the tending to the business, returning to normal, and life goes on. The bitterness, the resentfulness, you know, asking why, guilt and blame, loss of faith. Sometimes you just feel like, oh, just want to give up. Release and honor. You know, at some point, you'll come to a point of release and honoring them. And then honoring life of the departed and sense of peace begins to settle in. And loving thoughts and feelings of departed and feeling love for the living and acceptance and enjoying life. Where would you say you're at in your grief journey?
Probably anger and depression still.
Okay. Anyone else want to share? Oh, Lorraine, are you there? That's okay if you don't want to share. The question a lot of people ask is, how long does grief last? Well, it's different for everyone. There's no predictable schedule for it. The grief process cannot be rushed, even if it's extremely painful. It is normal for significant dates, holidays, and triggers of feelings to the loss. It's normal to go through all that. And do's and don'ts, like some of the things we know that are really important, like, you know, saying I'm sorry for your loss, reaching out to people, listening with compassion, accepting silence, offer specific help, and be there for the long haul. It's okay to use the name of their loved ones. Don'ts is, how are you? I know how you feel. Nobody really knows how you feel. Everybody has a right to their own feelings. You know, using sentences like at least or try to lessen the grief. You know, it's just okay to allow people to talk. That's what I usually say. Now, this is a thank you letter example that I wrote for my mother. Dear Mom, I just wanted to say a big thank you for, and then I wrote down about how much fun we've had, some of my greatest lessons that she taught me. I wanted to tell you, I feel, I hope, love forever, your daughter. Basically, that's one of the letters. And then you can also write a tribute letter. You know, this is something that you can actually write about their character, that they were a hard worker, something about their faith, family, and some of the things that they demonstrated, such as kindness and love, and that they were fearless, they were great listeners, you know, they were really kind and loving people. And what did they stand up for? What did they teach you? Basically, my mom combated with, you know, smoking. And, you know, she always shared of her gifts. And she'd always tell the younger generation not to smoke because it's really difficult on your lungs and, you know, don't do what I did, sort of thing. She was also hospitable. She loved volunteering and donating of her time. And she was an incredible human being. And she etched in my heart forever her love, you know, to share with others always. And some of the ways that you can help is by listening to people's stories over and over again. It's really helpful to listen to the stories because it helps us to get through that time of, you know, not understanding what it is that the other person is going through, accept what they're saying, talk with them about what happened. So important. Try to understand their fear and what that loss means to them. You know, find out what is helpful to them and what they need to help them to get through it, you know, and give help like cooking a meal or even babysitting. And I know for myself that was very, very helpful. You know, it was really, really good for me to have the supports that I needed. Um, especially when I lost my mom. I had friends coming over and they cooked for me, and that was helpful. Also, my boys were very helpful too. We talked about the stages, so we won't go through this too much anymore. And then, of course, you have all of these different waves that you go through. And can you see where you're at in this here diagram? No?
Yes,
Okay.
I am stuck, but yet I've accepted the part that my dad is gone. It's
Yeah.
just trying to get through the rest of it, and it's not working at all.
Okay. You know, sometimes it takes a while for us to get to that point where we get to that point of acceptance. So I'm really happy that you're here because you might get some ideas of how to walk through it here. Um, music can be helpful in our process to grieving. I know that it really helped me a lot to listen to the giant bell. I used to listen to that, drumming, meditations, things like that really helped me with my emotions. You're allowed to scream, you're allowed to cry, but do not give up. Tears come from the heart, not from the brain. So, you know, these are some of the different things that you can do to help. yourself to heal. You acknowledge the time for yourself and acknowledge your feelings. Time for you. Allow yourself to have that time to heal yourself. I know for myself, going into nature was very, very helpful. Talking about it, doing something about it. I created a legacy book of my mom's life, and that compounded so many great things about her life that it really, really helped me a lot. And then support, sharing with others, everything that I was going through was really helpful. There's much sadness in the world, but there is no sadness greater than the loss of a mother or even a caregiver. No grief is greater than that of a mother's grief. No pain greater than the mother's last goodbye. And that I would say, especially for parents that have lost their children, that I can't imagine the pain that some of the parents go through. So grief is in two folds, two parts. The first is a loss, and the second is remaking of our life. And that is so, so true. During the holidays, talking about grief is really important. Create boundaries with your time. Find a way to honor them. Start a tradition, by honoring their memory. I know for my mom, like we made her favorite kind of foods, and we did a prayer, and we talked about her and some of our favorite memories about our loved ones. Set realistic expectations for yourself. You will probably be sad and maybe cranky, and that's okay. Allow yourself to feel all your feelings. Resentment and anger are normal. Practice self care and check in with yourself on a regular basis and meet those needs. This comes from blessing and manifesting. And then, a lot of these different emotions can happen during the holidays, the loneliness, lack of a regular routine, stress because of traveling, anxiety over the holidays. Holiday planning could be overwhelming. Setting boundaries, with families, working retail or on the holidays, holiday fatigue and exhaustion, food and body image issues, anxiety over gift giving. All of these things come into play, especially around holiday season, like what we just went through over Christmas. And then grief over the loved one. And then sometimes the family dynamics really get to us. Missing a family that you wish, were still with you. Anxiety over traffic, crowds, and people could just really get on your nerves. And then also seasons can affect our emotions as well. And financial stress and worry can be really, really affect us as well. So this is self-care for kids, but I would say it's for everyone. Sharing your feelings, of encouraging, of self-awareness, and then focus on articulating your feelings. I'm angry, I'm sad. Recognizing toxic stress events. Set aside some time for yourself, and also low stress solo activities. Encourage journal writing and diaries. Encourage your child to focus on the moment. Find social groups that can help you feel like you belong, and practice self-care for yourself and set a standard, and establish a self-care routine and cultivate interests and hobbies. These are some helpful hints that could really help you with your holidays. Now, the task of grief is to accept the reality of loss, to experience the pain of loss, to adjust to the new environment without the person, and to reinvest in your reality. This is a poem that I wrote after I lost my mom. It's about grief, and an act of love. It's a sacred rite of passage. It is the deep, dark sorrow to know and feel love is truly a gift part of the circle of life. From birth to death, love transcends death. With gratitude for knowing our loved one is a cost for loving them. And they go into the light of love. We become our hero's journey. Through memories of greatness of our loved ones, we listen to the echoes of their love in the song of the birds, in the warmth of the sunrises, as the ocean tide rises, only to calm the warm winds that touch us like a feather. Being a part of all of the senses, we are so blessed with a heart that forever feels the love of spirit. By rising up like the sun, we too shall weather the storms, and we shall soar once again in bliss, knowing that our love lives on and is limitless. That's a poem that I wrote after I lost my mother, because when I go walking, I would find feathers, dimes. I would feel that warm wind on my face, and I knew that everything was going to be okay. Do you ever experience anything like this?
Yes. I found feathers, dragonflies, butterflies in the summer.
Oh, fabulous. Fabulous.
A lot of cardinals now, you know, that winter's here and cardinals come quite often.
Oh, like signs. I had blue jays coming by.
Yes.
So this is naming of your feelings in this chart here. So you can see all the different colors, and it's really helpful, especially if you're going through this and you don't want to talk about it, but you can, look at the different words, and you can define your words through this chart. What word describes you right now?
Oh, a lot of them.
Okay.
My emotions are just all over the place. I can't control them. You know, I'll be at work and all of a sudden I'll just start crying, or a song will come on and I'll start crying, and I can't get them under control.
Mm-hmm. And that's quite normal. You're going through the different emotional states of your grief. And, as time goes on, you will build some strength, and you'll find ways to get through those moments. And whenever I go through the darkest moments, I always think of the absolute opposite, and it gives me into a state of great gratitude. So whenever I think really sad things, I go into a place of gratitude. I give thanks for the love that I have. I give thanks for, the moments that I had with that person. I give thanks for that song. So try to do the crisscross in your brain, because that'll help you to balance it out. So these are some tips for coping. Write a letter to the ones that have passed away. You can write a thank you letter or a tribute letter. Journal your feelings. Meditating is really helpful. Art therapy, music therapy, counseling is very important as well. Or sports, yoga, dance, swimming, bike riding, going into nature, eating healthy. Now, there's a tapping method. This is a method that you can use. I'm going to go through it quickly right away, because it's really good, because it really helps you to release that
I'm going to teach
stress.
you a really powerful tool.
So this is it right now.
tap on the feelings of being overwhelmed and stressed out. I'm Jodie Shield, and I'm author of my brand new book, Life Tonic, a modern toolbox to heal your life and soothe your soul. So just practice for a minute with me, tapping on the outside edge of your left hand. And you're going to repeat after me now. Even though I feel stressed out and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept who I am and how I feel. Even though I feel stressed out and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept who I am and how I feel. Even though I feel stressed out and overwhelmed with all I have on, I deeply and completely accept who I am and how I feel. Take the hand you've been tapping on, 2 fingers, and tap on the beginning of either eyebrow. And we're going to shorten what we've just been saying. I'm stressed out and overwhelmed. Tapping on the side of the eye, where the bone curves round. I've got so much going on. Tapping underneath the eye and the bone there. I'm being bombarded with stuff. Tapping on the top lip. And it's really stressing me out. Tapping on the chin. I've got so much on my plate right now. Hand in a fist and tapping on the V. I can't see what to do next. Tapping under the arm. I can't think clearly. Tapping on your head. I've got so much going on in my life. So once you've done a couple of rounds of negative tapping, you then do a round of positive tapping. So keep up with me. Tapping on the eyebrow. I choose to relax now. Side of the eye. I choose to feel calmer now.
I choose to feel
Under the
calm.
eye. I choose to surrender now.
I choose to surrender now.
Top lip. I choose to relax now.
I choose to
Chin.
relax now.
I choose to find some space.
I choose to
Collarbone.
find some space.
I choose to surrender now. Under the arm. I choose to find peace. Top of the head. I choose to relax. Closing your eyes, taking a really nice deep breath in and release. And sense how you feel now.
That's just a little something that I use quite a bit to, I find that different methods are very, very helpful when we're going through grief. And that's just a little tapping method that you can use to help to heal with your grief. Was that helpful for you?
I felt a little bit of something there. I'm not sure. Kind of like a, I can breathe for a minute.
Mm-hmm. So this is some of the dynamics that go on with families as well. Common sources of conflict, lack of accurate information, guilt, fear, grief time, lack of trust. Sometimes there's religious conflicts or cultural conflicts, dysfunctions in the family, healthcare team issues. There's a lot of things that go on when we're going through a lot of grief, and conflict after the death of a loved one can really complicate our lives. Sorting out through belonging, who gets what to keep, what to give away, whether to keep or sell a house. Money is a big issue. Treatment decisions at the end of the life, funeral arrangements, family relocating, custody of children. Sometimes dealing with differences can be really stressful as well. Now, some of the things that I really found helpful for myself to memorialize my mother. Here's my mother that passed away. I made a book on her life, and I had my brothers and sisters participate in it because it gave us all the opportunity to give our pictures of our mom. And what we did was basically went through the stages of her life. I put together a table of contents from birth to the time of her death, where she lived, where she grew up, where she went to school, all these different milestones, when she got married, when she had kids. We also, and that book, everybody had, my mom had 9 kids. So there was 9 chapters plus 11 grandchildren. So 9 pages for each of the kids and then 11 pages for the grandchildren. So it was filled with a lot of pictures of positive memories. This is a way that you can engage your pet family in a positive way to help to heal the family during the grieving period. The next thing is to plant a tree in their memory. You can also paint a picture. This is a picture up here that I created. It's a Mystic Mountains picture. Painting was so therapeutic for me. This is a piece of jewelry that I made. My mother loved purple. So whenever I put the bracelet on or the necklace on that I had made, I think of her. Also, she loved flowers and the color purple, of course. Then I made a beautiful collage pictures of her, to help to embrace the love that we had for her. Now, 15 steps to having a great life. These are just practices that we can carry on in our lives. Cultivate healthy relationships, cultivate a positive mindset, exercise, eating healthy, and healthy living, reducing our stress, and drinking lots of water. So I hope this is helpful for each of you. Grief does not change you, but it reveals you. And there's a lot of different grief resources that I used over the time. And there's just so many that we went through, and I showed you about the tapping method. For those of you that are still dealing with a lot of issues, like for me, I don't know what it was, but the great bell chant really helped me. Morning meditations helped me out a lot. And this didn't come overnight. I did a ton of research, literally, and I put this list all together to help other people to heal. So listening to really powerful people that have gone through loss really helped me to really connect to my inner healing. And different healers from around the world. And then I looked at different grief stories that were inspiring, that really helped me to heal with my grief. I can say that I've come to terms with my grief. And I think that that's really the most important things that we can do to help to heal while we're going through our grief. So that really concludes everything tonight, but I just want to show you one more thing here. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments about tonight's session?
No.
With
I've learned more tonight than I have 2 years.
really?
And I thank you for that.
Well, I'm here. I'll be doing sessions every week. And if you go to my website, there's blogs in there with a lot of information that I share on different topics. And you can check it all out. I do offer a program, the Grief Warrior program. How I came to creating the Grief Warrior program was my own experience of what I went through myself in my grief. And I wrote it through my pain and my suffering. That's how I came to this place of doing all this writing for the community and helping to heal others. Now I'm doing this full time because I quit my full-time job as a social worker because I wasn't functioning anymore as a social worker. And my passion for life had changed completely. So that's why I put together this entire program, the Grief Warrior program to help people with the many, many tools they need in order to heal. Now, if you had a little bit of change happening to you tonight in the last, 1 hour, then great. And if you'd like to continue on coming to these free sessions every week, great. And if you'd like to explore even the Grief Warrior program, it's 13 sessions and you get all the pre-recorded sessions along with 11 ebooks that I wrote in order to help people heal. And it's the stories from my heart. And, there's a lot of different topics in there. So if you go to the website, you can explore it. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm just here to share with you how I came to terms with my grief. And if I can assist you by sharing this program with you, or even coming to the different workshops next week, we'll be going into how to create a legacy book next week. So
Okay.
was that helpful, ladies?
Yes.
And yeah, so you're welcome to come back next Wednesday at 6 p.m. once again. And I thank you both for coming out tonight. And for all of you that are watching, thank you all for participating from Facebook. Take care, everyone, and have a great night. Have a great week, Bobby. And if you ever need to message me, you know who I am now.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone. Have a great night. Keep
Bye.
Take care.